Today's show and the following message are brought to you by AgriScience Labs, the largest, most established cannabis testing network in Colorado. To find out how you can get the most accurate and reliable test results, visit agriscience.com.
Consolidation usually comes after growth. I think the cannabis industry is one of the first industries where you're going to see consolidation simultaneous with growth, and it does create a challenge. I've never really looked at it in that way, the way that you just stated it, but I would say, yeah, we're both in growth and consolidation mode at the same time.
From Bumminit Media, it's the MJBulls podcast, a show about raising cannabis capital. I'm Dan Humiston, and on today's show, how David Friedman from Vividgro is raising capital to acquire cannabis companies. Hey, David.
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Great. Today we're here with David Friedman, the CEO of Vividgro, and we're at the Cannabis World Congress Business Expo this year. There's going to be a lot of noise in the background. David, can you talk to me a little bit about Vividgro?
Yeah, sure. So Vividgro was a division of Lighting Science Group Corporation. Lighting Science is a 18-year-old company, leader in the development of LED lighting. Okay. And like a lot of people in this industry, they tripped over the cannabis space and realized that LED lights were something that the industry was looking at to move to the next generation of cannabis grow as things legalized and the production of cannabis started to move indoors for a lot of different reasons. And so they sort of set up a bit of an experiment within the organization it's close to about 8 years ago, I think, and initially started manufacturing lights for some of the other popular brands. So initially we manufactured for Illumitex. BIOS came out of Lighting Science Group, and then eventually decided to begin manufacturing under our own brand.
Okay.
And got to a point where they realized, after building a patent portfolio at Lighting Science of about 400 patents, they wanted to move into the monetization phase. Pegasus, which is the private equity group that owns Lighting Science, it's about a $2 billion mainstream institutional private equity group out of New York, decided to come out of the closet and said they were willing to back spinning off a company into the cannabis space. And so they were looking for somebody who had experience in venture, startup.
That's how you got involved.
Cannabis, yeah. And there's like 4 of us, I think, in the world who have that combination of experience, and the other 3 were busy. So I ended up getting the job. Had some really good leadership and guidance from within the Pegasus organization. And we went out and did a couple of very small acquisitions on the software side. And
that's been recent?
Well, we closed one deal earlier this year. It's a company called WeGrow, which is an app for home growers in the cannabis space. And then we acquired the rights to a building automation software technology that we call GrowNet, and that was earlier this year. And about a month or so ago, we spun off, which was the plan, from Lighting Science Group as a standalone company. We raised capital from Pegasus and Merida, one other institutional cannabis private equity fund, probably the largest fund in the space, also based out of New York, with the idea of putting together a very aggressive M&A strategy, growth strategy to take Vividgro, I think, aggressively to a run rate. I think our goal of about $100 million in the next 18 to 24 months.
And so you're supplying the home grower and you're supplying the commercial grower with lighting every stage of the growth?
Yes, we have what we call a very agnostic philosophy, right? So we are crop agnostic on both the hardware and the software side. So what we manufacture from a lighting perspective and even from a software perspective can be used to grow any crop indoors. We are hardware agnostic from the software side. So while we build our lighting products to interface with our software, it's kind of the Apple philosophy. It works with anything. Okay. Hopefully it works a little bit better with our stuff, but somebody wants to buy our automation control system but put in somebody else's lights, which is the case in a couple of situations, then that's fine as well. We're also geographically agnostic, so we service companies that are based in the US, in Europe, in Canada. And then finally, we're agnostic in terms of whether or not that grower is a commercial grower or a home grower or somewhere in between.
So right now, Vividgro's expanding through acquisitions. I guess that's probably the best way to say.
Yeah, I mean, we're still laying the groundwork for our expansion plans, but acquisitions are going to be a very aggressive part of expansion. We don't have the time to grow organically. Even with an unlimited amount of capital, the space is just on fire and it's moving too fast to sit and grow through organic growth. And so we know M&A has to be an integral part of our growth strategy.
In some ways, you're sort of acting almost as a consolidator.
You know, nobody's ever really put it that way, but I think that consolidation is something that is going to take place in this industry, simultaneous to the growth of the industry, which is atypical. Coming out of the technology industry, consolidation usually comes after growth. I think the cannabis industry is one of the first industries where you're going to see consolidation simultaneous with growth, and it does create a challenge. I've never really looked at it in that way, the way that you just stated it, but I would say, yeah, we're both in growth and consolidation mode at the same time.
Just a quick thank you to one of our sponsors. Bridgewest LLC is one of the first accounting firms in the world to focus solely on the cannabis industry and is your one-stop provider for accounting, audit, tax, and advisory service. They're offering a free 30-minute intro call to one of their leadership teams to all MJBulls listeners. Go to bridgewestcpas.com, and now back to the show. What type of companies would you be targeting for acquisition?
We're looking for hardware and software companies that are technology-based. So we're not really looking to acquire shelving and racking, and those are our channel partners. Service-based companies that are consultative in nature. We work very closely with a group out of Florida called Higgins. We've struck a partnership with Grow Generation, which is a chain of about 20 hydroponic stores. We're looking more for technology-based hardware and software. Obviously,
you need fuel to fund this expansion and the acquisitions.
Absolutely.
So you're into your next funding round. Tell us what you're raising and how people can get involved if they're interested.
So one of the things that's also kind of interesting is that the reason that I agreed to take this job was that Pegasus was, in my opinion, the first institutional investment firm that agreed to step into the cannabis space. We've really focused on raising institutional capital, and for a couple of different reasons. Number one, we want larger check sizes, but number two, we want strategic investors, and not strategic investors in terms of how they're defined in the capital markets corporation that, has a strategic role within a company, but strategic investors that can really help us get to the next level, people that are experienced in M&A transactions and that can help us accelerate the growth of the company. And so we haven't priced the round or settled on a target. I believe we're going to be somewhere between $8 and $15 million in this next raise. It's primarily going to go towards growth capital. We are under LOI with a company that I can't disclose at this point, but I'll maybe come back on and tell you when it's done.
Okay.
And so we'll need some growth capital and operating capital, as well as some dry powder to continue to do more acquisitions. Obviously, want to try to do some stock-based acquisitions. We're a private company, and I believe we expect to stay that way for the short term. Public companies in the cannabis space is a whole nother conversation, but we're going to need to continue to raise capital to execute an M&A strategy. And so our next round here is, like I said, it's going to be somewhere between 8 and 15 million, depends on how the LOI plays out and what type of capital we need to close that deal, and then how much more dry powder we want to have on hand to be able to move to the next ones.
So if people are interested in getting involved with your growth, they should contact you directly?
They can contact me. Merida, who's our institutional capital partner, is going to lead the raise. Through me, I can put them in touch with the guys at Merida who will do the initial kind of diligence around the right types of investors.
And you're at David at Vividgro.com.
Yeah, David at Vividgro, Vividgro.com. And I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Well, we've been talking to David Friedman from Vividgro in a noisy hall at Cannabis World Congress Business Expo in Los Angeles. All of Vividgro's information will be on the MJBulls.com website.
Absolutely.
David, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Dan.
It was great. Thanks.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Just a quick thank you to one of our sponsors, Trevitt Hill. Managing and supporting a cannabis investment is both time-consuming and expensive. Trevitt Hill provides cannabis investors with an external team to help their investment reignite growth. To learn more, go to TrevittHill.com. Thanks for listening to the MJBulls podcast. To learn more about today's guest or to apply to be a guest, visit our website at MJBulls.com. And if you like our show, give us a review on iTunes. Today's show was produced by Bumminit Media. I'm Dan Humiston, and you've been listening to the MJBulls podcast.